My husband's family called me a gold digger and boycotted our wedding, but 2 years later, they showed up at our door because his grandfather left everything to him. So I did this when they asked for money, and they went silent. I'm typing this out on my phone, so formatting might be a bit messy. So I, female, 26, have been dating my boyfriend Jake, male, 29, for about 8 months now. And honestly, I'm starting to think his family hates me. Like, actually hates me. And I don't know if I'm being too sensitive or if they're really being as awful as it feels. Some background, I guess. Jake's family has money. Not like crazy rich, but definitely comfortable money. His dad owns some kind of consulting business, and his mom doesn't work, which is totally fine, obviously, but just different from what I'm used to. They live in this huge house in the suburbs, and Jake has his own condo that his parents helped him buy. Meanwhile, I'm a marketing coordinator, making like $45K and living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment that eats up most of my paycheck. I'm not ashamed of where I am in life, but I definitely feel the difference when I'm around them. I should probably mention that I dated this guy in college whose family was also pretty well off, and they made me feel like complete garbage the entire time we were together. Always making comments about my clothes or my car, which was this ancient Honda that barely ran, or asking pointed questions about my career plans in this tone that made it clear they thought I wasn't good enough. That relationship ended partly because I couldn't handle feeling judged all the time. So maybe I'm extra sensitive about this stuff now. Jake's family seemed nice enough at first. His mom was always saying how happy they were that Jake found someone, and his dad would ask about my job and seem interested. His sister lives nearby with her husband, and they were friendly when we met. His grandma is honestly sweet and always trying to feed everyone. Anyway, last weekend was Jake's dad's birthday, and they had this family dinner at their house. I was nervous because these family things always make me feel on edge, but I wanted to make a good impression, so I bought his dad a nice bottle of wine, probably spent more than I should have, honestly, and showed up trying to be positive and social. Everything was going fine at first. We're eating dinner and chatting about normal stuff, and then Jake's mom starts talking about their annual beach house rental. Apparently, they've been doing this family vacation thing for like 15 years, where they rent this place in the Outer Banks for a whole week every summer. Sounds nice, right? Well, she starts going on about how they're planning this year's trip and how excited she is that Jake will be bringing me this time. Then she asks me what I think I'll be contributing to the week. I was confused, and she explained that they split the rental cost between the families, and it works out to about $800 per person for the week, plus food and activities. I nearly choked on my water. Like, $800 is not an insane amount of money, but it's definitely not something I can just say yes to without thinking about it, you know? That's basically my entire fun money, budget for like 3 months. So I told her I'd need to check my budget and see what I could manage. Maybe I could join for just a weekend instead of the full week. The table got quiet, like really quiet. And then Jake's dad made this comment, loud enough for everyone to hear, about people who date up and how some folks need to be realistic about their expectations. I swear I wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Everyone just sat there, and nobody said anything for what felt like forever. Jake's grandma started asking about dessert, and Jake jumped in talking about some sports thing, but I could feel my face burning, and I basically didn't speak for the rest of dinner. After we left, Jake told me his family just needs time to warm up to me, and that they're not used to having outsiders around. He said I shouldn't take his dad's comment personally because he's just protective of the family. Then he suggested that maybe I could make more effort by doing something like picking up the tab next time we all go out to dinner to show that I'm serious about being part of the family. I was so confused and hurt. Like, first of all, I can't afford to pick up a dinner tab for 6 people at the places they go. And second, why should I have to prove myself with money? But Jake seemed genuinely concerned about keeping everyone happy, so I said I'd think about it. The following week, they had family game night, and I decided to go and try to make more effort like Jake suggested. Big mistake. We're playing cards, and Jake's sister starts asking about my apartment. When I mentioned it's a 1-bedroom, she acted all shocked and asked how I fit all my stuff in this tone that made it sound like I was living in a cardboard box. Then she starts asking about my student loans. Who does that? While Jake's mom is nodding along, like these are totally normal questions to ask someone. She wanted to know how much debt I have and when I'll have it paid off, and whether I'm planning to upgrade my living situation anytime soon. Meanwhile, Jake is just sitting there playing cards like nothing weird is happening. Jake's grandma tried to change the subject by offering to get more snacks, but Jake's mom gave her this look, and she just sat back down. I felt like I was being questioned about my entire financial situation in front of the whole family. The worst part is that Jake keeps acting like this is normal family stuff, and I'm being too sensitive. When I tried to talk to him about how uncomfortable the money questions made me feel, he said his family is just curious about my life, and they ask lots of questions because they care. He keeps saying they'll warm up to me if I just give it time, but honestly, it feels like they've already decided I'm not good enough, and they're just waiting for me to prove it. I don't want to be someone who can't handle being around successful people, but I also don't think I should have to constantly defend my financial situation to my boyfriend's family. And I really don't think I should have to spend money I don't have to prove that I'm worthy of dating their son. But maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe this is just how families with money operate, and I need to get used to it. I mean, they're not wrong that Jake and I are in different financial situations, and I guess from their perspective, they want to make sure he's with someone who can, I don't know, keep up with their lifestyle. I'm just so tired of feeling like I'm not good enough. My last relationship ended because his family made me feel like this exact same way, and I swore I wouldn't put myself through that again. But I really care about Jake, and I don't want to give up on us just because his family is making things difficult. Am I the idiot for being upset about his family's comments about money, or am I being too sensitive about normal family questions? Edit. Since people are asking, yes, I have tried talking to Jake about this multiple times. He keeps saying his family means well, and they're just protective. But honestly, it doesn't feel protective. It feels like they're judging me. And no, I don't think they're intentionally trying to break us up. But the constant focus on money stuff makes me feel like they think I'm some kind of gold digger, which is frustrating because I've never asked Jake for anything financially. I pay for my own stuff, and we usually split dates 50-50. I just wish his family could get to know me as a person instead of focusing on my bank account balance. Now, for the first update, thank you all for the reality check. Things have gotten so much worse. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. Reading your responses helped me realize I wasn't going crazy about the money stuff. Well, I wish I could say things got better, but honestly, they've gotten so much worse that I'm starting to think you were all right about his family. So Jake and I got engaged 3 weeks ago. After those awful family dinners I posted about, we had several long talks about our future and decided we couldn't let his family's actions stop us from moving forward. I know, some of you said I should wait and see how things went, but we'd been talking about it for months, and I really thought once we were officially engaged, his family would back off and accept me. Anyway, we decided to announce it at their Sunday family dinner because Jake thought it would be nice to share the news with everyone together. Big mistake. Like, huge mistake. We barely got the words out before his mom started talking about family expectations for the wedding. Not congratulations, not we're so happy for you guys, just straight into wedding budget talk. She said that since marriage is about equal partnership, she thought it would be appropriate for my family to match whatever they're planning to contribute to make things fair and balanced. I tried to explain, again, that my mom works 2 jobs and doesn't really have savings for wedding stuff, thinking maybe she forgot our previous conversations about my family situation. But she just smiled and said, "Real love finds a way, and sacrifices show commitment." Jake's dad was nodding along the whole time, and nobody else said anything. Even Jake just sat there, picking at his food. The whole dinner felt like some kind of test I was failing. Jake's grandma tried to change the subject to ask about ring shopping, but his mom kept circling back to wedding budget and family contributions. She kept using phrases like investment in the future and showing you're serious about joining the family. It was so uncomfortable. 3 days later, and I'm still mad about this, Jake's sister called me. She somehow got my number from Jake, apparently without warning me first, and told me the family wouldn't be coming to the wedding if we were planning some courthouse thing because it would dishonor family traditions. I was so confused because we never said anything about a courthouse wedding. We'd actually found this really nice but affordable venue and were excited about our plans. When I tried to explain that, she cut me off and said real commitment means sacrifice, and then just hung up. Like literally hung up on me. Who does that? But here's the part that really hurt. This past weekend, Jake came home from some emergency family meeting looking all stressed and wouldn't make eye contact with me. Apparently his family gave him an ultimatum. They want us to postpone the wedding until I prove my commitment by paying for an engagement party and bridal shower, like specific expensive events that would cost thousands of dollars. And then Jake suggested that maybe his family has a point about taking things slower to let everyone adjust. I think that's when I realized he's choosing them over me. Again, like he always does when they put pressure on him. I tried to talk to him about how this felt like they were trying to price me out of the family, but he just kept saying they need time to warm up and I should try to see things from their perspective. I've been feeling so isolated and confused about whether I'm overreacting, but then something happened that kind of opened my eyes. This girl who's Jake's cousin reached out to me through Instagram after seeing family group chat messages about our wedding stuff. Apparently they have a whole group chat discussing me, which is great. She said, "This reminds me of what happened with Jake's last girlfriend." And I was like, wait, what happened with his last girlfriend? But then she immediately backtracked and said she didn't want to get involved in family stuff and wouldn't tell me specifics. So apparently this has happened before. There was another girl who went through the exact same thing and Jake never mentioned it. Never said, "Hey, my family did this before and I learned from it," or "I won't let them treat you the way they treated her." Nothing. I'm starting to think you all were right about them trying to control the relationship through money. The beach house thing, the constant questions about my finances, the wedding ultimatums. It's all about proving I can afford to be part of their family. And Jake just goes along with it because keeping family peace is more important than defending me. I feel like such an idiot for thinking an engagement ring would change anything. If anything, it's made them more aggressive about pushing me out. They know I can't afford their tests and games, and that's exactly the point. I don't even know what to do anymore. I love Jake, but I can't keep fighting his whole family for the right to exist in his life. And I'm scared that even if we do get married, this will never stop. There will always be another test. Another way I'm not good enough. Another thing I need to prove. Maybe I should have listened when you all said his family was showing me who they really are. Edit. 1. To everyone asking about the ex-girlfriend, I've tried bringing it up with Jake, but he claims they just weren't compatible and won't give details about what his family did. 2. Yes, I'm seriously considering couples counseling, but Jake thinks we should handle family issues privately without outside interference. 3. Several people DM'd me with similar stories about their partners' families, and honestly, it's both comforting and terrifying that this is apparently common. Now for the second update. 2 years later, and wow, things took a turn. I never saw coming. I probably should have updated sooner, but honestly, things got quiet for a while, and I was just trying to move on with my life, Jake and I got married anyway. Beautiful small ceremony with my family and our friends. We both got promotions, saved up, and bought a little house. Jake struggled with the family stuff for months, but eventually accepted that we were better off without the constant pressure. The only family member who stayed in touch was Jake's grandfather, his dad's dad. Jake's grandfather lived about an hour away and rarely came to the family dinners, but Jake would fill him in on family news during their regular phone calls. He never said much about the whole situation, but he'd call Jake every few weeks and send us anniversary cards. Nice old guy, seemed genuinely happy that Jake was happy. Anyway, 3 weeks ago, Jake's grandfather had a massive heart attack during what turned out to be a rare visit to their annual family barbecue. Jake got the call while we were grocery shopping, and we rushed to the hospital, but he was already gone. It was really sudden and honestly kind of traumatic. Jake had been planning to visit him that weekend and felt horrible about missing what turned out to be their last chance to talk. The funeral was awkward. We hadn't seen Jake's parents or sister in 2 years, and suddenly we're all sitting in the same church trying to grieve together. They were polite but distant, lots of stiff hugs and sorry for your loss, but no real conversation. I figured that was it. we'd probably not see them again for another few years. But then the will reading happened last week, and everything just went crazy. So apparently Jake's grandfather was way wealthier than anyone realized. Like, he owned the family business. I'd always thought Jake's dad owned the consulting business, but apparently he'd just been running it while his father maintained ownership, plus several rental properties, plus this big investment portfolio. Everyone just assumed this would get split between Jake's dad and his uncle, like normal inheritance stuff. Nope. The lawyer read out this will that left literally everything to Jake. Everything. The business, the properties, the investments, even grandfather's house. Jake's dad and uncle got some personal items and like $10,000 each, which is nice, but not what they were expecting. Jake was completely shocked. We all were, honestly. But then the lawyer kept reading and got to this part where grandfather specifically mentioned being disappointed in how the family handled Jake's marriage and how he'd been watching some really concerning stuff happen with money and relationships. You guys, he knew. He'd been watching the whole time as they treated me like garbage over money, and he changed his will about 6 months after our wedding. He never said anything directly to Jake about not liking how they acted, but apparently he was paying attention to everything. The room was dead silent. Jake's mom looked like she'd seen a ghost, and his dad just kept staring at the papers like maybe he misheard something. His sister actually started crying, but not like sad crying, more like angry crying, if that makes sense. We left pretty quickly after that because it was really uncomfortable. Jake's uncle started asking if grandfather was mentally sound when he changed the will, and the lawyer got all stern about how everything was properly documented and witnessed. It was a mess. I thought that would be the end of it. They'd probably blame me somehow for influencing grandfather, even though we barely knew each other and only saw him a few times a year. But apparently, I underestimated how desperate they'd become. 4 days after the funeral, my doorbell rings, and it's Jake's mom holding a casserole dish. A homemade casserole. This woman, who I'm pretty sure has never cooked anything that didn't come from Whole Foods in the 2 years I knew her, was standing on my porch with comfort food, talking about how family needs to stick together during difficult times. I was so surprised I just let her in, and we sat at my kitchen table while she talked about misunderstandings and how grief makes people say things they don't mean. She never actually apologized for anything specific, just kept talking about moving forward and healing as a family. Then Jake's sister showed up the next day. Then his dad called asking to meet for coffee to clear the air. All of them suddenly wanting to reconnect after 2 years of complete silence. What are the odds they all decided to work on family relationships the exact same week they found out they weren't inheriting millions of dollars? I'm not stupid, but I was curious about what they were really after. So when Jake's mom suggested a proper family reconciliation dinner at our house the following week, I said yes. Jake was hesitant, but honestly, we both wanted to see how this played out. So last night, they all came over. I made a nice dinner. Everyone was being super polite and friendly. Lots of talk about how much they'd missed us and how families should never let small disagreements come between them. Jake's mom brought flowers. His sister complimented our house. His dad actually asked about my job promotion. It almost felt normal, like maybe they really did want to make things right. But then we got to dessert, and Jake's mom started talking about how grandfather's death had created some cash flow issues with the business while the estate gets sorted out. She mentioned wondering if Jake might consider a small temporary loan to help cover operating costs until everything gets finalized. Jake's sister jumped in, talking about how she's been struggling with her mortgage payments since her husband's hours got cut, and how family helps family during crisis. His dad mentioned that grandfather always said Jake should remember where he came from and help out when relatives are having trouble. I just sat there, listening to this coordinated sales pitch disguised as family bonding. They'd clearly worked this whole approach out together. Start with the emotional reconciliation, then bring up money once we're all feeling warm and fuzzy about being a family again. But here's the thing. I've been working in marketing for 8 years now. I know a campaign when I see one. And I also know you don't show up to negotiations unprepared. So I got up and pulled out this detailed budget spreadsheet I'd put together, because honestly, I saw this coming the minute they started being nice to us. I spread it out on the table, and walked them through our finances. Mortgage payment, car loans, student debt, the whole thing. Showed them exactly why we can't afford to loan anyone thousands of dollars, even temporarily. They looked uncomfortable, but kept pushing about just this once, and surely there's something. Until I mentioned that we do have a monthly charitable giving budget. I explained how I've been donating to grief counseling programs, since our wedding situation taught me how important it is to address family problems professionally instead of just letting unhealthy patterns continue. You should have seen their faces. Jake's mom went completely quiet, and his dad started shifting in his chair like he wanted to leave. Because what are they going to say? That they don't want professional help for obvious grief and family issues. They just want money. I kept going, all concerned and helpful, talking about how I'd started researching grief counseling after our wedding problems, because I realized their way of handling things wasn't normal and could use professional support working through this difficult transition. Then I offered to increase our grief counseling donations and help them find some good family therapists in their area, since they're obviously struggling and could use professional support. The look on Jake's mom's face was priceless. She literally couldn't speak for like 30 seconds. Jake actually backed me up, which surprised me. He said he'd noticed some concerning patterns in how the family handles conflict, and maybe professional guidance would be healthier than just throwing money at problems. I think watching them show up with their hands out the minute they lost their inheritance really opened his eyes to how transactional their relationship with him has always been. They started making excuses to leave pretty quickly after that. Jake's sister suddenly remembered she had an early morning. His dad got a work call he had to take. His mom started loading the dishwasher really aggressively. They couldn't exactly argue against professional help for their obvious dysfunction without admitting they preferred money over actually fixing anything. As they were leaving, I cheerfully offered to research some additional family therapy resources and email them links to programs that specialize in grief and financial stress. Jake's mom just nodded weakly and said they'd think about it. I'm sure they're furious that their reconciliation plan backfired, but honestly, I feel pretty good about how it went. They showed their true colors by immediately asking for money the second they were nice to us. And now they know that any financial help from us comes with strong encouragement toward professional mental health support. Jake and I talked for hours after they left. He apologized for not seeing their manipulation clearly before and said he's proud of how I handled it. He also admitted that inheriting grandfather's money feels complicated because he never wanted their approval to come with a price tag attached. But now he's wondering if their love was always conditional on what he could provide for them financially. I think grandfather knew exactly what he was doing when he changed that will. He saw how they treated our marriage like a business transaction and decided to leave his actual business to the only family member who wasn't trying to buy and sell relationships. Anyway, we'll see if they actually follow up on any family therapy suggestions or if they just disappear again until the next time they need something. I'm not holding my breath. Since several people asked, yes, Jake's grandfather left a personal letter for him too. It basically said he'd always been proud of Jake for choosing his own path, and that he hoped the inheritance would give him freedom to build the life he wanted without family pressure. He also mentioned that he'd watched us together at a few family events before everything went bad and thought we genuinely cared about each other, which was rare and precious in his experience. Jake cried reading it, and honestly, so did I. To answer questions about the business, it's actually really successful, and Jake's dad has been running it for years, but it legally belonged to grandfather the whole time. The will includes provisions for Jake's dad to keep his job and current salary, but he doesn't own any part of it anymore. Jake hasn't decided what he wants to do long term, but for now, his dad can keep managing day-to-day operations while Jake learns about the finances and legal stuff. A few people DM'd asking about the grief counseling donations and whether that was planned all along. Honestly, I started researching it after our wedding stuff because I realized their patterns weren't normal, and I wanted to understand what healthy families actually look like. The donations started as a way to process my own frustration, but after grandfather died, it felt right to redirect them in his memory. I definitely suspected they'd ask for money eventually, but I didn't plan the whole spreadsheet thing until Jake's mom suggested the dinner. Sometimes being prepared just means you've been paying attention to patterns, you know?